Welcome everybody, I'm Adam. And in this problem, we're going to be writing the trigonometric expression cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus theta as a trigonometric function of only theta. So before we start, helps to know what we're looking for. So what is a trigonometric function of only theta? Well, that means we want our cosecant of this 3 pi over 2 plus theta to be equal to some function, we'll call it f, of just theta on the inside, where f could be some other trig function, sine, cosine. We don't know what it is yet, but that's where f will go. So that's what we're going to try to do. So taking a look at this, well, what we have is cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus pi. Now, we see a sum of two angles inside of the trig function, and we know we have these sum and difference formulas. But one of the things we don't have is we don't have sum and difference formulas for the reciprocal functions, namely cosecant, cotangent, or secant. So what we do from here is just note exactly what it is. Cosecant is 1 over sine. So cosecant of a sum is just going to be 1 over sine of that sum. So cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus theta is equal to 1 over sine of 3 pi over 2 plus theta. Okay, so now we have the sine of the sum of two angles. And so what we're going to use, right, is our sum formula. Right, we have the sine of some u plus v is equal to, say, the sine of u times cosine v plus cosine u times the sine of v. Let's see. So, filling this out, sine of 3 pi over 2 plus theta in the denominator, using our sum formula. So we're going to have 1 over sine of our u, which is 3 pi over 2 times cosine of our v, the second angle, which is theta, plus cosine of our u, or 3 pi over 2, times sine of v, or sine of theta. Okay, so this is what we have. Well, where do we go from here? Not quite sure yet, but we can at least see that we can simplify this a little bit. We have sine of 3 pi over 2 and cosine of 3 pi over 2. And what are those values? So sine of 3 pi over 2 we know is -1, and cosine at 3 pi over 2 we know is 0. So looking right here, we have 0 times sine of theta. Well, 0 times anything is equal to 0. So this entire expression will become 0. So then what we have is 1 over negative cosine theta plus 0 in the denominator, so we can leave it as 1 over negative cosine theta. Now, we're pretty much done here. We have a trig function of only theta, but we can clean this up just a little bit more. So we can write this 1 over cosine, we know is secant, so we can write this as negative, say, secant of theta. So there we go. We have the cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus theta written as a trig function of theta by itself. Now we're going to use a graphing utility to confirm our answer graphically. So we want to confirm that cosecant of the value 3 pi over 2 plus theta is equal to negative secant theta. And how we're going to do this is we're going to graph each part as a separate function and see that the graphs of each will coincide with each other, showing that they're equal. So first we're going to go into our equation input. And for our first equation, what I'm actually going to do is graph negative secant theta first, since that's a more recognizable graph to us. We've seen it before. So we're going to enter in negative secant theta, where secant is 1 over cosine. So -1 divided by cosine of x. And before we graph, we'll go into our mode and make sure we're in radian mode.
And for our window setting, it's really rather arbitrary, but we'll take window x min from negative 2 pi, x max positive 2 pi, and our x scale will count by pi over 2. And our y min take as negative 2 and y max as positive 2, and our y scale will count by 1. So now we're all set. If we press our graph button, we should see our graph being traced out, which is, again, the graph of negative secant theta. So it's the graph of secant theta flipped across the x-axis. So it should look pretty familiar to us. So we have that. Now to confirm that the graph of this is equal to the graph of cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus x, or plus theta, go back into our equation input. And for our second equation, we'll type in cosecant, which is 1 over sine, so 1 divided by sine of the quantity 3 pi over 2 plus x. And everything else being set, we'll just press graph, and then watching, so actually we should see nothing happen, meaning the graph of cosecant of 3 pi over 2 plus x is being traced right over the graph of negative secant of x, which confirms our result.
Thank you very much.